so I'll go fast and I will not talk about Doppler too much, so that's good. So it just says that today we are looking for any new means to assess the surface current because it's a necessary tool. Who do I hit? The button? Okay, so this is a famous quote that we are using usually because as it was well done and well said, it was by Peter Niller to look for the 2025 horizon, and he was just considering that today the main task was to call for development and implementation of new method and instrument for direct velocity observation of the ocean, but especially to know more about the vertical motion in the upper ocean, in the upper 200 meters, because this is where you know all the fluxes, tracer, biogeochemical interaction will interact and shape the ecology as well as the physical environment. And tell me, where it is here like that? Yeah. Okay. So it changed a lot in 2 centuries. We can say that this is also famous from 2 centuries ago or more, 250 to now. As shown by, we have been very fully turbulent. In 250 years, we became turbulent. Before it was not. It was also observed at a really fine scale, and this thanks to so the previous one was in the beginning of 2000, and this is a MERIS image where we collocated the capability for MERIS to have ocean color, sea surface roughness, as well as the ATSR to show the sea surface temperature, and not only it's fully turbulent, but you observe this turbulence at very small scale. And I'm used to look at this beautiful image to show how the signature of the wave current interaction can help to distinguish this small scale motion that are riding with the geostrophic motion, such as this small spiraling or this small meandering eddies, as well as this small spiral where you can see the development of motion when you are able to trace at 250 meter resolution the change of the roughness for an eddy of the order of 10 cyclonic eddy of the order of 10 km diameter.
Bertrand,
oui.
T'as un micro si tu veux.
Oui, mais je ne sais pas comment m'en servir, donc c'est pas la peine. Non, je ne sais pas. Okay. But, and today, as said by Craig, we are still left with the capability from altimetry, and you see the coarse resolution of the altimetry overlaid over the same region for the same day, where you indeed see roughly the shape of the Gulf Stream well delineated with the altimetry map, and to coincide with the sea surface temperature. And if we continue like that, okay, I cannot see. We have also shown by the work by Nicolas Reul that we published also that the sea surface salinity at medium resolution could be well expressed by the surface current that could be derived from the altimetry. And playing the game to include also the 3D. We also tried with Sébastien Guimbard and Nicolas to morph the sea surface velocity from altimetry with the salinity from SMOS, as well as the information from the precipitation, from the reanalysis of CMORPH, as well as the integration of under layer and the interior of the ocean with the Argo flows. So in a sense that for large scale, we are quite rich, and we can rely indeed on medium and low resolution measurement. It works also, and it was also the occasion to get more information on the dispersion of slick. This is one application where you would like to know where the slick will end. And again, using the altimetry and the blend product to estimate the impact of surface current, already you can have a fairly decent idea or where the biogeochemical transport, the dispersion of pollutant can go. But still, we know that today the satellite dataset, altimetric and microwave data, they cannot capture ocean dynamics at scale much smaller than 70 or 100 kilometers, and because mostly of the resolution or the noise level. So we also have the opportunity with Irun here. I don't know if I can do a movie. Okay, no chance. Okay, so I go. Okay, that's okay. But just like to say that definitely this is this matter of maybe noise or not understanding fully the spectral quantities that are lying in the range of less than 50 kilometers that are maybe captured or not already by along track altimetry, and this the characterization and the role of the submesoscale also to cascade on the mesoscale, this is almost unknown, and even if we have the numerical resolution model to improve, this is true that from an observation data set we are missing a lot of information between 100 kilometers and 30 kilometers. And as well as, since this scale will live on the order of less than 1 week, we need also to have a time sampling to be sure that we can capture this 30 kilometers to 100 kilometers, say from 3 days to 10 days at the right sampling. That means that better than 3 days. And it's true that question related to the total surface current vs altimetric current, this is still an ongoing activity, and here are few questions that were already addressed in this paper by Callies and Ferrari, and we know that the impact of the submesoscale on the larger scale motion will also be an issue, and as well as the fact that the submesoscale is seasonally as well as regionally triggered, and meaning that the interpretation of the altimetric current in terms of total surface current, this is still something to discuss. And this was an example as well from, again, a discussion between the derived information in terms of kinetic energy from sea surface height measurement as compared to direct observation from ADCP along a fixed boat trajectory, where the change in the slope between the kinetic energy from the sea surface height compared to the velocity. Also, we're asking for more development to understand why the velocity spectrum was falling faster than the expected kinetic energy from SSH. And one idea that was put forward with Aurélien Pont and Klein was the fact that the interaction between the geostrophy and the wind mixing layer could end up to lower under surface quasi-geostrophy approximation in order to derive analytical solution to express the fact that the surface current could be indeed affected by this mixing, vertical mixing in the mixed layer, with lowering the impact of the geostrophic current in the upper ocean. And so this was a strategy to interpret the altimetry at best, to have somehow to build an ocean surface current today. We have several strategies. So numerous remote sensing measurement to measure tracking technique, such as the maximum cross correlation. This has been applied mostly on sea surface temperature on a clear sky day, such as the optical flow method, which is equivalent. You do have the ability to derive information on the change of surface roughness at very high resolution, and embedded is the low resolution from altimetry, as well as the information from mesoscale ocean wind vector from scatterometry, or also the microwave SST. We also, as I was trying to show, have an increased in situ capability from fixed network, Argofloat, drifters, as well as ship tracking measurement now. And we can rely, at least to guide the information that we can get from Earth observation, the fact that we have dynamical frameworks such as the operational model, quasi-Jost-Trophy interpretation, surface quasi-Jost-Trophy, the Ekman, interaction of the Ekman with the surface quasi-Jost-Trophy, the wave-induced Stokes drift, the Langmuir circulation. And we have also another way to detect the change due to current that following the swell that I was discussing Monday and that I will repeat a little bit. Indeed, sometimes we are very lucky, and this is an example where we were able to rely on opportunistically on the fact that a glitter measurement from the Sentinel-2 could be done at a different time to allow, so this parallax can induce indeed a change in brightness, but this change in brightness in fact is due to a change in the tilt of the camera. So to allow you to detect at the same time the spectrum as well as the dispersion of the waves, and the standard way to interpret the dispersion relationship is to compare with the linear relationship. And when you have this is a nice case of a strong current, the fact that the waves are not dispersing at the same as following the linear dispersion relationship, you may say that you have a strong current, in this case 2 meters per second.
3 minutes.
3 minutes, okay, so I will almost finish. Okay. So,
yes, a bit more.
no, but this is just to continue very fast, and so just to go for, okay. Another way around is to say that, okay, since I have a wind measurement, I would play the game to filter my high variability of the scatterometer wind measurement, and indeed, if I feel the surface is feeling the wind relative to this moving ocean, I should find a way to infer the surface current. Unfortunately, it's not that, okay, you can trace surface current from this high-pass filter of the scatterometer measurement. This is a 1 month average of the high-pass filter wind. And, but it was shown also that this was depending, and this was the Shelton's work, that it was also depending the same on the fact that it coincided with the change in the sea surface temperature. And indeed, when we apply this over a buoy, the fact that the scatterometry was not one-to-one with the projected surface current on this buoy, that was changing as function of the stability. So in fact, we cannot play the game to interpret the scatterometry directly as a change of wind relative to a moving ocean. And this is due to the fact that you have a complex interaction between here is a sketch from Mahadevan, just to express that you will have the interaction of the wind with a warm eddies, for instance, and this warm eddies will accelerate the wind. But if it accelerates on one side, it will decelerate on the other side. And as well as the fact that you have a modified Coriolis, you will have also a nonlinear Ekman pumping term that makes some divergence and convergence of the Ekman transport. And this starts to be too complex. So we couldn't find a way to... so no direct way. Okay, so whatever. So we come to a fact that the first and most simple, while very complex, to measure direct ocean surface Doppler velocity from space, and this is where we stand. So this is Wesson. We are listening to me somewhere here, and we have here an example of this SRTM, the shuttle experiment, where you have an ultra high resolution, but limited to the line of sight direction, where indeed you can define. This is a comparison between the model compared to the derived surface velocity, or at least the line of sight scatter velocity detected by the radar. And you see at least qualitatively a nice comparison. And I think Roland will talk more about it. And to conclude, in a sense, I would say that today, in order to measure the best measurement we could rely on to interpret the total surface velocity is to build on the capability to have very high very time, the fact that you can detect the Doppler, that means the derivative of your signal in time, in order to describe the full total surface velocity. This sketch was prepared by Yuri Lyurovsky to try to interpret a fixed radar of a moving in time ocean, and this will be repeated. And just to conclude, obviously in this sketch you can understand that most of the motion will be seen from the modulation of the radar intensity, meaning that the total surface velocity that you will receive is the total slope velocity. And the total slope velocity as detected by a radar will change as function of incidence, will change as function of polarization, obviously as a function of azimuth, but most importantly, the fact that you are detecting the surface current only through the fact that you have mean square slope. So your surface current will only be a mean square slope weighted surface current, whatever the mean you will use. It could be Doppler scat, it could be a scheme. The only way to measure the Doppler is through the fact that the slope are changing in time. There is no other mean. It's coming directly as from the standard dispersion relationship. And so this is just to conclude, and that I hope we will have a few questions and days to discuss. Okay, thank you.
41 seconds left. Not bad. Any questions for Bertrand?
I had only 20 more slides.
Question to Bertrand.
Yes, I was a bit intrigued about your statement about the spectrometer. I mean, we're doing you're making all this trouble to give you stress equivalent width, as we call it.
Yeah, and you
So,
see that it's a very complex way to.
No, I understand it's complex, but I also understand that if you want to understand RC interaction, you have to understand the complexity.
No, but you are absolutely right. The only trouble is that you understand that so far the scatterometer has been empirically interpreted from most of the buoy or model. Model and buoy are most of the time measuring wind at different height and so on, and we go through a model to interpret the wind as function of the logarithm profile in terms of stress. So you see that this is not already, it's not direct, even in the empirical. And in the plot I was trying to show is that the one-to-one, I was too fast, but I can I don't know what to do. Like that? Yeah, not bad. Okay, this one is not completely stupid. This work was Amanda Plagg with Van de Mark, where we were showing that in fact only when we were able to select a neutral condition, that was the only time we could make the one-to-one between the correction of the current versus the wind from a buoy. As soon you have a non-neutral condition, then you change, and this is normal, you change the slope. So it's not that direct that you could use, for instance, the scatterometer to develop a very fine stress measurement. It's not that direct. You need to have the stability and RC temperature difference, and we don't have the air temperature.
A question for Bertrand? So clear.
So clear.
Thank you very much, Bertrand.
Okay.
So we move on to